Well, the All Blacks end of year tour team with 35 tough, strong men has been named this afternoon. A very interesting looking team. Take a look at this. Not a lot of changes than what we've seen earlier this year. But I suppose the major talking points to come out of this one, Anton Lienert-Brown got through 45 minutes with Waikato today. He has been recalled to the All Blacks. Braden Ennor is back in the mixer as well, not just as injury cover. No Angus Ta'avao, no Patrick Tuipulotu, Damien McKenzie, Brad Weber were another couple that we talked about potentially being back in this team, but we haven't seen it. Bossy, what do you think of this team that's been named?
Yeah, look, I think we've seen no bolters, and I don't think we could expect to see any bolters where they've come from this year. They're just starting to get momentum, a new coach coming in, so players are starting to understand the new coach. And as a dress rehearsal, this is not the time to throw guys in the mix to put all the hard work they've done in the last few weeks, or few months, sorry, at risk. So it's just those small steps to keep going ahead. Pretty much what I expected, but it's great to see Anton Lienert-Brown in there, who I thought was tremendous today.
In the last couple of weeks, we've spoken about potentially new guys coming in and maybe releasing Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's, the Stephen Petal-Fetters to this New Zealand 15 that will be named tomorrow. Where do you see these guys getting game time, Joey?
Well, I think obviously the Japanese test is the obvious one, the first test on their end-of-year tour. But I also think that's nerve-wracking for me as well, because this Japanese team, I know for a fact that they have been preparing themselves all year for this one test match. They've had 2 test matches against France in the lead-up. They've had 2 test matches against Australia A in the last 2 weeks. So they are priming themselves to have a real crack at the All Blacks with the expectation that they're probably going to play maybe their B team, their supposed B team. So they're thinking, this is our one chance to knock over the All Blacks and create a little bit of history for the Japanese. And we know after what they did in the 2019 World Cup, JK, that this Japanese side, they're not a walkover like they used to be.
Yeah, I don't care, Jay.
Right,
don't care.
What, if they lose?
No, I don't care about Japan. I think that we only have 10 test matches to go, I think. And I've been saying that for a long time. I'm with Isaac. Like, we
so
cannot
results
afford...
don't matter on this?
Well, they do, but if the players get out there and lose against Japan, then they
You won't care, you won't be saying...
No, I'll really care,
yeah.
But it's those players. For example, Hoskins Sotutu, I think, is an outstanding young talent, going to be around for a long, long time. What do we want to see from Hoskins? We want to see him go to the well a whole lot more, right?
Yeah.
Played really good against Australia, but probably got a bit tired towards the end. He needs to play against Japan, and he needs to go exceptionally well.
Yep.
Petal-Fetter needs to play, and they need to beat Japan, and they need to beat them well. And well, I mean, they'll play well Japan, and it might be 3 points. So I don't care about Japan.
But you need to see
but
these
we've got to
guys
see these kids out there.
play 80 minutes.
And they've got to play 80 minutes, and they've got to win, because I'm with you, Isaac. Like, we cannot change this team. I was hoping to see D-Mac in there just because I like him personally. I was hoping to see maybe a couple of changes. But at the end of the day, if you're Fozzie, you've got to go, we've got some new coaches here, we've got a settled side, and there's just no time left.
Yeah, and I guess when you look at what they've got left, Bossy, they've got Wales, Scotland, then England after that, and you've got to think, well, if there's one test match that they're going to give these guys a crack and to actually test them, because they haven't tested them throughout that whole rugby championship, really. These bit part players have had a little bit of exposure, but in a real test match, go to the well, they're not going to get a chance against Wales, Scotland or England, are they?
Bossy, that's the question, right? I guess, do you send, Whakatava, do you send those guys with the second side, or you take them like Fozzie's decided, and then, that's the decision, I guess.
They need game time, and they need more game time than just against Japan. Whether that's, we're guessing that he's going to throw those ones out against Japan, but they need to get put into the cauldron in away matches in the likes of the Millennium Stadium, in Twickenham, because it's going to be twice that once they get to face these teams at the World Cup. And so we have to start developing the belief we've got it in that starting squad or that group.
Especially against Northern Hemisphere teams as well, because we weren't convincing on the last end-of-year tour, and then obviously against Ireland at home, we're well below par. So, yeah, I think the only opportunity, Japan, for these guys.
No, I think Isaac's right. He's going to have to take some risk.
Yeah.
Got to put some guys out there.
JK, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's been named as a midfielder, Geordie Barrett as an outside back. Do you see those roles changing on this end-of-year tour?
Yeah, I couldn't really understand, Roger, if it's true that Fozzie didn't call and say play on the wing, but we guess we can ask him. Yeah, I just didn't think it was the right thing to do from Roger's point of view, because I think if he plays on the wing, I see him as the fourth best winger at the moment. I see him as a real contender and learning his position. That's the only reason that I wanted him to play
That's pretty
at 12.
generous if he's the fourth best winger, because he hasn't played there. He's played 2 games for...
No, I mean on this tour. So why would you play wing? Why wouldn't you stay at 12 and go, actually, Anton Lienert-Brown's coming back? You know, there's a few injuries there. I'm just going to settle that position. That's why I couldn't understand it from his point of view, because I see him as a 12. I see him has some X factor at 12. His feet, fantastic. I think he can be world class there. And he's had a lot of bad luck as well. You know, we're talking about having to name a really solid and take no risks on the Northern Tour, but Rogers hasn't had a lot of time, and not through his own fault. So spending 3 games on the wing, I just couldn't understand, because I see him as a 12.
Well, we can ask the head coach of the All Blacks now, because we are so lucky to have the time from Ian Foster. Ian, thank you so much for joining us on your Sunday evening. It's a year out from the Rugby World Cup. You have just named a 35-man squad. You'll take 33 to the Rugby World Cup. Is this as close as it gets to your World Cup team, with a couple still to come out?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Look, it's, you know, whilst we're planning with the World Cup, you know, we've also learnt the last, I guess I've learnt the last 2 World Cups. So you always got to keep your options open in the year leading into it. So in 2015, 2019, each year we've sort of seen someone play their way in through the Super Rugby campaign that year. So, you know, options are still alive, but we're looking at building on, I guess, a lot of the combinations we've had through in the Rugby Championship, and taking that squad through and give them a different challenge up north.
Fozzie, just before you came on, we were talking about RTS. I didn't agree with him playing on the wing, and I thought you might have given them a phone call to say, can I see him on the wing? So if you did, that'd be nice if you tell us. You don't have to, of course. But I see him as a 12. Where do you see him as the All Black convener of selectors?
Yeah, look, I did speak to Alama. I said if there was a chance to put him on the wing at the end of the game, then it wouldn't do him any harm. I think what he's got out of it, JK, is it's probably just given him a different view of the game. And I think for Roger trying to learn the game, I think it hasn't hurt him from that perspective. And I think that one of the reasons that I haven't minded it is because, you know, when you're looking at picking your 23, having a midfielder who can cover the wings, also another feather in the bow. And so, you know, we still fundamentally see Roger as a midfielder, but the fact that he could show some versatility at the wing, and when you look at his league background, he's obviously played in that backfield a lot. So, you know, I thought he handled it really well, and I just think that maybe gives us a few more options when we pick our 23.
Fozzie, you alluded to that positions are still up for grabs going into World Cup year. When you talk about that, what positions are of concern for you going into next year and even this year?
Yeah, I think concern's the right word now, Joe. You know, it's you know, but I think you never shut the door from an All Blacks perspective. You always want to, I guess, we're always under pressure to look at players as they're performing, and you know, like I said, we can't predict the future about players playing out of their skin next year and sort of demanding that we look at them. But you know, overall, I think we've come into this year, we've asked some. We've put a bit of a microscope over our front row. We've put a bit of a microscope, particularly over 6 and over the midfield. And overall, I think we've got some really good answers from those in those 3 areas through this campaign to date. And this tour coming up is a really good chance for us to cement that. So, for example, I think the form of Shannon Frizzell's been excellent. And, you know, after a long injury, he's come back and played really, really strong and almost demanded selection in this squad, and we'd love to see him grow. I think we've seen the likes of Fletcher Newell, Tyrell Lomax, but Tyrell particularly, you know, he's jumped up a lot and sort of, and as a starting tight head, he's been fantastic for us. And then I think when you look at our midfield, well, we've had, I guess, a lot's been spoken about with Geordie, and I loved his game at 12. But I also thought David Avili's form grew as the season went on, and he started to show that triple threat game that we love with him. So we've got some good options in the areas that perhaps we had to make decisions in this year.
Yeah, Fozzie, you talk about the doors never closed and things like that, but there's also players within your squad that haven't played a lot of rugby lately. So I know you've specifically mentioned Perifeta, you'll get a lot more game time. You've got Japan and then the 3 Northern Hemispheres. How do you balance making sure the likes of Perifeta, Fakatava, Kirstie get a decent amount of game time on this, but you've got to get results as well? And the same with the wider squad through different positions.
Yeah, great question, Isaac, and it's never easy, that part of it. And, part of being in a team is you don't always get the opportunities, for everyone. But look, certainly Stephen we think he's grown immensely through the last 4 or 5 months. We've loved the way he's gone about his work, and the fact that he hasn't really got an opportunity was probably not a lot to do with him, but maybe some of those early results put us under pressure, to keep the combinations growing. So, I think you'll see his name pop up in the next test, and then we'll certainly be trying to give him another opportunity on tour. But he's had 2 or 3 games back for Taranaki during the Rugby Championship, and that's been good for him. It's kept him in tune, but he's a player with a big future, and clearly, that was a selection, and like Damien McKenzie was another one in that position that was. We were looking at hard. We've got a lot of faith in Damien as well, but we really feel like we owe Stephen an opportunity to show what he's learned. And when we name that All Black 15, I guess it's a chance for Damien to come back in and to show his form in that team.
Fozzie, are you going to be sending some of the players that might not get a couple of games back to the other side to play on the Thursday night, or do you want to keep your group together?
Yeah, look, we're going to keep a large part of our group together, but there is a bit of a plan for some players we might drop a couple of players potentially back. Like after we play Japan, we head up. There's a couple of guys at this stage we might drop into the All Black 15 team to play against Ireland, and then they might come back to us, and then there might be 1 or 2 more that go back into the Barbarians team. So, there might be a case for us to put a couple in each of those games. The All Black 15's got a squad of 28, and we also want, that 28 to have a good opportunity. So it's balancing that. But yeah, JK, we will be doing a little bit of that as the tour goes on.
Fozzie, your first game on tour is obviously against Japan. They're a team that's on the up, obviously, and performed really well at the last World Cup. What's your policy in terms of your selection? What are you looking to do? Are you looking to select your A team, or are you looking to select your A- team, or your B+ team, mate? What's your approach to this game?
Well, look, we want to pick the strongest team we can, but we've got 4 tests in a row. We've had a decent break, and we've also got some players that didn't play a lot at the end of the Rugby Championship. So you add all those components together, and you kind of get the combos that we're looking at. So there will be some players that haven't had a lot of time that will get a chance against Japan, and it's not just a one test to give people opportunity. It's also about people playing for an opportunity to play in the next 3. So. We're treating it as a standard test, and we know Japan has played really, really well lately, and they've been in camp for a long time, playing Aussie A 3 times, so they'll be ready for us. And we're coming off a bit of a break period, so that's why our camp next week in Nelson's pretty critical. It's a big week coming up.
Yeah, Fozzie, just lastly, there's a few boys not available because of injury. Angus Tavell did miss out, and he's not mentioned as been injured. I know he's had a few head knocks and a couple of neck injuries and stuff, especially on Friday night. Is there a factor in a few players like Angus that they need a little bit of a rest to get a few things right?
Yeah, it could be, Isaac. Angus, I'm giving you guys a bit of a heads up, but I've already told you about Damien. So Angus will be in the AB 15 team, and spoken to him today, and him and his family they're just taking things quiet now as he gathers information. He's in a good place, but so he will get named because we think he's a guy banging on our door, obviously, and it's a chance to have an experienced tight head up there, give him an opportunity. But if he's not right, then he definitely won't tour. And so we'll work together with Angus on making that sort of decision, because it really has to be one that the player leads that decision. And if he feels it's right to stay behind, then we're 100% behind that.
Ian, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fozzie.
Fozzie.
Aussie.